Hello, everybody. Um, in the second webinar of the series, we're going to focus on identifying the stages of the present and practice (PPP) lesson structure in the pages of textbook materials. Learning outcomes are as follows. In the previous webinar, we focused on understanding the rationale of each of the stages. And in this one, we are going to look at some textbook pages to identify the stages. More specifically, we will be looking at the textbook Heroes, published by Macmillan, and we're going to be looking at a Year 5 lesson. So we're going to open that right away. We have the student book, and then we have the workbook. Let's start with the student book. Lesson 2 focuses on grammar. We can see it here. And we have as learning outcome talking about the past using was, were, wasn't, weren't. And we also have, as I would call it, a secondary objective or learning outcome, reading comprehension. So if you remember, we start the present practice procedure with a lead-in, which in this case is not given. That would be, or it's not given here. It might be given in the teacher's book. In any case, as teachers, we can always plan for a motivating lead-in that is rich in context and activates students' previous knowledge. In any case, notice that even though the core of the present and practice sequence is to be found here, there's a lot of work before that in this lesson, and more specifically, it's a reading comprehension. So now, of course, language and skills are taught in an integrated way in the English class, but following the procedure we explained in the previous webinar, this is what we would call the restricted exposure to the target language. So in this case, it's reading comprehension. It's a text. It offers a rich context, a rich situation with characters and stories and so on. But notice how the target language is already used in the text without before it is explicitly presented. Okay, notice that we have a past simple verb to be. And this is the principle, or this is the idea of restricted exposure to the target language. So students, before the target language is explained to them, students are already exposed to it in sort of a limited text or limited scenario where they can really make sense of it, even if they still don't fully understand it. So after this reading comprehension would come the grammar presentation proper. Notice that it's done in a very interactive, hands-on fashion. Firstly, students have to find sentences, locate sentences that include the forms was, were, wasn't, weren't. And then would come the moment for the presentation, where students very soon have to do controlled practice of the target language. How do we know it's controlled? Well, because students can't really think or speak out of the box, in this case, a literal box. They have to combine the subjects, the forms, and the places, and the time references to make sentences about themselves and about their friends. Notice that there's a further grammar clarification point in relation to contractions. Okay, you have it here. And finally, there would be a speaking task, communicative speaking task, where students have to play a true or false game, and they have to use the same grammar that they have been exposed to and that has been taught. Now let's take a look at the workbook, which presents supplementary materials for practice. Notice how we have a little reminder here of the grammar. And then we have controlled written practice. A little bit more review of the vocabulary of the different places. Slightly freer practice and much freer practice. So notice how whether we integrate this with the materials in the student book, whether we ask for homework, there's the idea that we move from much more controlled practice, in this case written, where student has just to select the right form, to slightly freer, not so much freer practice, but here in exercise number 4, we do see a much clearer example. Sorry about that. We do see a much clearer example of freer practice because students can choose what they write because they have to decide what they did, they have to remember, and they have a certain degree of choice. So I hope this video helped clarify the present practice procedure, and I really hope that it helped clarify the point of this big chunk in the lesson that we call restricted exposure. Restricted exposure doesn't have to be a reading comprehension. It could be listening. It could even be something as simple as a song where students are singing using the target language before they actually fully comprehend it. So thank you very much for watching, and yeah, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.